What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham, Gius, and Matthews break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the March 4th, 2024 edition of Raw Talk from a pretty decent edition of Raw last night. I thought a good show, not a great show, not nearly as great as last week or the week before, I thought, but still a pretty solid show, all things considered. They open up here, Megan Morant and Sam Roberts in the studio, replaying the opening segment with Cody and Rollins. Diarrhea, Dwayne shit aside, which was fucking stupid, announcing they'll be at SmackDown on Friday to confront the Bloodline, Rock and Roman, to officially accept their challenge, I would have to imagine, for a tag team match on night one at WrestleMania. They also run down the bigger headlines from Monday's Raw before throwing into Ricochet backstage for an interview here on the show. Ricochet tells Kathy Kelly that he's been thinking a lot about his career in the last couple of weeks, months, whatever, about the Logan Paul loss and how he was cheated out of a win there and all this other sort of stuff, and how he's been watching people go in and out of Adam Pearce's office for months now, clamoring for an opportunity at the Intercontinental Championship, despite Ricochet not really being around recently, which is true. He was in the Royal Rumble match, but I think prior to that point, Ricochet had not been featured on Raw in a while, maybe in a backstage segment, but I don't think we've seen Ricochet in action on Raw, maybe in months. He might have been on recently that I'm just forgetting, but I think prior to that, we hadn't seen him on Raw in a match, maybe since that match with Dominic back in October, early November, so it's been a while. But he says he feels like he deserves the shot, and he did things the right way in going about asking for an opportunity, but he doesn't need to prove himself. He calls himself the former Intercontinental Champion, which is right. He's not wrong when he says that. He was the man that Gunther beat to win the Intercontinental Championship not even last June, it was June in 2022, so it's been a while, but factually, he is the last person to hold the Intercontinental Championship before Gunther. Now, what he doesn't mention here was that not only did Gunther beat him for the belt, but they had a rematch the following week on SmackDown that Gunther won decisively, and they had another match on SmackDown later that year after Ricochet won that World Cup tournament in late 2022, and he failed that time as well. In addition to all the other number one contenders matches he's had in the last 2 years, and he's lost every single one of those too, so I don't really know if I would go so far as to say that Ricochet is a worthy opponent for Gunther. Far from it, actually. If everyone in that match is probably the least credible challenger to Gunther at Mania. He really, he's mentioned on Twitter and in various segments on Raw before, I want another opportunity at the championship. He's lost more than anyone. Even Gable lost to Gunther when he last faced Gunther last year, but it's not like he's he had multiple matches with Gunther. Even Gable fared better than Ricochet has against Gunther so far. At least even Gable's beaten Gunther by DQ, and one time by like a time limit draw or whatever. So, anyway, it was funny that he brought that up. He just mentioned that he wants to right a wrong, and Gunther, he better hope that he faces anyone but him at WrestleMania, because if he faces Ricochet at WrestleMania, he will not be walking out Intercontinental Champion. So I thought that was a funny line, because it would guarantee if Ricochet were to win the gauntlet somehow next week, which he won't. But if he were, it would guarantee that Gunther would walk out of WrestleMania, still the Intercontinental Champion, because Ricochet's not beating him. So I thought that stuff aside, I thought this was a great promo. Ricochet's great. The problem is that the booking doesn't really support what he's saying. If the point is that he's just talking out of his ass here, and the idea is to turn him heel, because it is worth noting, a few different points during this promo, he was speaking in third person. So I'm thinking, are they turning him heel? Like, he even dressed like the fucking Rock circa 1999. Like, with the necklace and the white shirt and the black jacket, whatever. He looked like that Rock meme with the thing around his waist, with the, whatever you call it, the purse or whatever, the man purse. And he looked like the Rock meme. Again, maybe that was intentional. I'm not sure. But that being said, it was pretty fucking funny that he did that shit, and that he still really hasn't done anything to back it up as a credible opponent to Gunther at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. So, again, I thought it was a great promo, well executed, well said, well delivered, but nothing he said really made much sense, aside from the fact that he was indeed factually the final person to win the Intercontinental Championship, or hold the Intercontinental Championship, before Gunther 2 years ago. They also throw it to JD McDonough backstage, who says that Dom stepped up against Gunther on Raw, and I take back what I said. I mentioned that Ricochet was the least credible challenger to Gunther in that match next week, in that gauntlet match. JD McDonough is even less somehow credible, because he won a match against R-Truth recently on Raw. He beat R-Truth, but beyond that, the guy hasn't won a match on Raw in like 6 months. So he really isn't all that credible. He's just in there to take the pin. He's a great competitor in the ring, but he's really not all that credible. But like I said, he mentioned that Dom stepped up against Gunther on Raw on Monday night. He mentioned that he'll dismantle Gunther at Mania if he gets the opportunity to face him again. Just fucking comical that he would even say that, but whatever. So in the studio, they hype up the Gauntlet match for next week's Raw. The winner of that match earning the opportunity to face Gunther at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. I think it's McDonough, it's Ricochet, Nakamura, Reed, Sami Zayn, Chad Gable. So 6 superstars. Only really Sami and Gable feel like real threats. I really hope Gable wins. It'll probably be Sami, and that's a great choice too. I think Gable would tell the better story because he has a lot to wrap up and an unfinished score to settle with Gunther from last year. But it would be it would still be a great match with Sami and Gunther as well. Maybe they can make it a triple threat somehow. I'm not sure. Maybe that's the end game. I guess we'll find out. So speaking of Gunther and Mysterio, they recapped or replay that match from earlier in the night. Sam Roberts. It was funny because I mentioned last week in my Raw review, in my Raw Talk review, that Megan Morant threw it to Sam, or she threw it to Sam here. She made fun of Sam for saying that, Dominic was the biggest threat of everyone that stepped up and clamored for an opportunity. That kind of mentioned last week on Raw, I want the next shot of the championship. He called JD McDonough the biggest threat of anyone in Judgment Day to Gunther. And I know he's just being a heel commentator, a heel talking head, a heel announcer, whatever, Sam Roberts. But still, that's a pretty dumb fucking thing to say. And Megan got, upset at him for that. And then she threw it to him here because Dominic did get an opportunity against Gunther this week on Raw. And he lasted longer than I thought he probably would. And he sold those chops like death. But it was pretty much a glorified squash win for Gunther is what it was. So she threw it to Sam here saying, well, you said he was the biggest threat. How do you feel now? And he said that Gunther almost lost the championship on Raw, which, by the way, bucko, it wasn't a championship match. It was a non-title match, but even still, he never came close. So again, I know he's being a heel announcer, that's the point, but you gotta at least believe to a certain degree of what you're saying, because that made no sense. But anyway, they replay the Judgment Day tag team win over Imperium. Sam Roberts says that JD McDonough, or not JD, I wrote JD here, it's not JD McDonough, Judgment Day themselves, specifically Balor and Priest, since Elimination Chamber, are on another level right now, plowing through that tag team division. They replay the Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler tag team win over Chance and Carter on Raw. They also hype the Kabuki Warriors defending the WWE Women's Tag Team titles if they win tonight on NXT against Lyra Valkyria and Tatum Paxley. If they can win that match tonight, they'll defend against Shayna and Zoe next week on Raw. They replay a lot of replays there. Replaying Becky Lynch and Nia Jax from Raw, won by Jax after Liv Morgan got involved. Kind of the same way Becky got involved in Nia versus Liv last week on Raw. Nia Jax, we hear from her here, and Jackie Redmond. Nia Jax says that Liv Morgan was weak because Rhea Ripley injured her. There's really nothing to boast about there. Oh, you want revenge, but she injured you when you were out for 6 months, whereas I'm not getting hurt, and I'm ready to go again for another shot of the championship, and no one's going to stand in my way of getting that belt back. And then she insults Jackie's Canadian tuxedo, and that was it. So to wrap up here, they replay the Jey Uso-Drew McIntyre main event, won by Drew, with interference from the Bloodline, Jimmy and Solo, and Cody and Rollins coming to their aid. They hype up Rollins and McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. Discuss Paul Heyman's Hall of Fame induction, which was announced earlier in the day via the Associated Press. Obviously a worthy induction. I'll talk more about it on Thursday as far as Heyman getting inducted. But, I figured it would happen to a certain degree. I wasn't banking on it just because I didn't honestly think Heyman would accept the honor while he was still active on television as an on-air character, especially as the manager to the biggest heel in the entire company. But he did accept, and it is a worthy place to go in Philly. So if it was anywhere else, he probably wouldn't have accepted, but that might have been what convinced him to do it. But he is getting the Hall of Fame nod this year, which is cool. And they plug Sami Zayn and Tiffany Stratton for the bump coming up on Wednesday. And that was it for Raw Talk. So a pretty decent show here. We heard from McDonough. We heard from Ricochet. The Ricochet promo was, again, one of the best promos he's cut I've probably have ever heard from him in WWE. He's really improved his mic skills a lot. The logic of what he was saying didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but again, if he's turning heel maybe, because he mentioned, I did things the right way and it got me nowhere, then maybe that could work. I guess it's worth a shot. He's not doing anything else anyway, so why not? The McDonough thing was fine, meant nothing, but it was fine. And the Nia Jax promo was decent as well. So solid stuff here from Raw Talk. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. I should have my first reactions to 2K24, not from getting it now, but from when I played it back in late January. Alexis had to edit the video. It took a lot longer than expected, but that should be up a little bit later on today. I know the game is officially out today. We had a chance to play it over Royal Rumble weekend at the 2K event in Tampa, and it was great. So check out that video when it goes up a little later on today. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham Giason Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.